Radio Free Skaro!
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Radio Free Skaro, episode number 857. I am Stephen in Edmonton.
Warren in Vancouver.
And Chris in Edmonton.
On the show this week, Doctor Who Redacted, the Doctor Who podcast spin-off, which is on BBC Sounds. It wraps up. Today as this episode drops. The 10th and final episode drops as well. So we're talking to Ella Watts, producer, director of Doctor Who Redacted, later on in this show. Also, there are a ton of links in the show notes for all the Target, we're still calling them Target novelizations that are coming out on July 14th and beyond, that will take probably quicker to read than it did Chris to copy and paste into the news list. So
sorry about that, Chris.
You're probably correct, yeah.
Yeah, so everyone pour one out for Chris and his Command V, Command C, Command V. I had to look at it. What is Command? What did we do with the copy and the paste?
C and V.
Yeah, did a lot of work in the news list. But no, the big news, of course, this weekend that we talk about here amongst Doctor Who fans, most Doctor Who fans, especially ones aged like 35 to 60, is that Kate Bush is at the top of the UK charts again. Because man, find a artist who is more loved by a specific set of people than age 35 to 55 UK British males, and you will never have to buy a drink in any bar ever again. Because man, my Twitter feed is just nonstop. Oh my God, Kate Bush is number one thanks to Stranger Things and
all Bush all the time.
Yeah,
explain this Rush thing, Chris, because I've never seen any UK people talk about Rush one way or the other.
I know far too many 40 or 50 something British, generally men, who just are massive Rush fans.
Well, Rush, the thing is, by the way, Beyond the Painted Stage is a fantastic documentary about Rush, and I'm not even a Rush fan, but it's a great documentary. But they are the thinking man's dude rock, so I can understand why.
You know what, Warren? You didn't need to tell me that you weren't a Rush fan because you're a Canadian male, and I find that Rush is very much more popular outside of our borders than they are inside of our border.
I respect them as musicians.
I do too. But everyone who who I know outside of Canada just assumes that we just listen nonstop to Rush, and everyone when I was growing up, like, oh God, I hate Geddy Lee's voice. No, I hate Rush, stupid Rush.
I never hated them or loved them. They were just kind of there.
I know. If given the option, certainly in Western Canada, maybe it's different out east, but in Western Canada, we like our rock and roll AC and DC. That's how we liked it here. And Rush usually was on
of Alberta.
Exactly.
Van Halen, Bon Jovi.
Well, and here's the thing: what everybody thinks is Rush for us is actually the Tragically Hip, who never really made it across the border. But the Tragically Hip are just ubiquitous here, and will remain so to the day I die.
Yeah. They are, sadly.
But when you die, their popularity goes away?
Yes, I am the arbiter of such things.
Did Kate Bush ever...
I was going to say, I think you're right, Stephen. Maybe it's a Western thing, but I know far more people outside of Canada who are Rush fans than I know in Canada.
Mm-hmm. I know.
Again, nothing against Rush. They're fine.
No.
I'm not a fan, but yeah, whatever.
Kate Bush, of course, is also famous in Doctor Who circles for writing Kinda. That was actually
Harold Pinter.
That was a legitimate fan rumor / theory back before the internet could be easily disproven. These things.
Can I please just stop you here? There is no such thing as a legitimate fan rumor. That is an
Oh
oxymoron.
no! Listen. There was Kate Bush wrote Kinda. I think that they had found color footage of the Masters of Luxor, an unshot William Hartnell story that was going to be actually featured in Frontios. And the rumors of the 80s, honestly, without the internet to disprove it. Like there were some corkers in there. I feel like there should be a book. If you're going to write a Doctor Who book, everyone, like don't do episode guides or nonsense like that, or like counting stripes in Tom Baker's scarf. Do a book just about the rumors that have been in Doctor Who. I want to see that book.
Not to veer off too far, but you remember that Star Trek, you probably don't, TOS episode where they open that box and anybody who looks without sunglasses, or Spock and the woman who's blind, go insane? That's what that book would be. So don't put that book out in the world. It'll drive people mad.
I haven't seen season 3 of Star Trek, the original series. Is that a season 3 of original Star Trek?
I don't remember. It's a good one, so probably not.
Really? Oh, okay. Because that sounds like,
I think it's season 2.
Oh, that show kind of washed over me, which is why I don't watch Star Trek Strange New Worlds, because you know what? I don't have nostalgia for that time period. So,
well, I disagree. I do. So
I still say you need to watch Strange New Worlds just for Anson Mount's hair. Given your Capaldi hair obsession back in the day.
I got enough. I got enough with Peter. I got enough. But listen, I'm in the midst of season 11 of my Doctor Who rewatch, and Pertwee's hair is getting bouffant enough for me. You know what? I'm in the middle of because I'm sort of steaming ahead a little bit because by the way, we're going on vacation. Chris is off to the UK. I'm off on a road trip for the next 2 or 3 weeks, starting in July, which is why we're banking episodes. Because of that, I'm watching instead of 1 episode a day right now, I'm watching 2 episodes a day, and then I'll catch up when I get back from my holiday and stuff. So I'm well into Monster of Peladon, and I gotta tell you guys, I'm enjoying Monster of Peladon. I like it. I
never hated it. It's just kind of a pleasant diversion.
Yeah, well, it just goes to show that, like, even what people say the worst Doctor Who story is, it's just like, yeah, I'm loving that. Oh, have you watched Strange New Worlds or these other 18 new shows on Netflix and Amazon Prime? Says, no, I'm watching the Monster of Peladon again. Thank you very much.
There's
and enjoying it.
That's, back in the old days, this is the upside of, and just sound like an old person, when you could only watch something when it came out, and that was that. There wasn't this onus to watch stuff. You missed it or you didn't. And now it's like, you haven't watched this yet. What's wrong with you? Nothing. It's a television show.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, Warren, because you and I were going back and forth early this week. It's the 50th anniversary of the original Watergate break, and so I watched all the President's Men last night. I wanted to watch. There was a CNN series about it on June 5th and June 12th. There's 4-part series, I think. They are 2 episodes one night and 2 episodes the next. And I can't find it anywhere. I can't find it on demand. I can't find it on CNN. It doesn't air again. It's not on their on-demand service. It's not on demand on the Shaw cable box. I even looked for the torrent websites. I can't even find it anywhere. It's basically like 1972 with that. If you miss it the first time, forget it. It's gone forever.
Except I just said series record, and it recorded on my PVR, which comes with my cable box. And I have no way of sharing that with you, unfortunately. Yeah, because I would if I could.
I know. Well, had I known about it beforehand, maybe I would have pressed series record on my VHS PVR. Apparently, is what we now have because it's never airing again. So I guess I'll just have to make do with the other 18 Watergate documentaries.
What new things are you going to learn from these documentaries that you haven't already stuffed in your brain?
Nothing. I know so much about I know way too much about Watergate. It's ridiculous. All thanks to All the President's Men way back when. What a great film. The big news of Doctor Who this week, of course, is for actual. This is the actual beginning of the show, everyone. 8 minutes in. Neil Patrick Harris, popularly known for people who have not watched TV since 1992 as Doogie Howser, but he's gone on to do many, many other things since then, I'm told, but he's going to be in Doctor Who. They announced it because he's filming right now publicly in Bristol in the UK. There has been much speculation about what character he's playing, including down to the Radio Times and other such things. And it's so public as to the speculation of who he is playing that it's becoming very difficult to not talk about it and have it be a spoiler. Because how much is it as a spoiler if everyone's talking about it?
Well, I mean, just even going through Google alerts or scrolling through Facebook or whatever, there's enough stuff out there without tags or spoiler warnings or whatever. It's just, here you go, it's just right in your face. Here's right. All the stuff that you probably don't want to know, but we're going to tell you because we're going to, they think they have to.
Yeah.
Did Russell T Davies name, like, you put him in costume in his Instagram, but he did not name the character, right?
No. And that photo was like the official BBC press release photo. That wasn't just RTD. Gotcha. The photo of Neil Patrick Harris in very sort of ashen, like 1920s film makeup with a top hat and tails and stuff. But that wasn't the initial photo. It was him sort of looking like Geppetto from Pinocchio, if you see what I'm getting at here. I don't know what he made, but that's what he was making in that, and that's kind of what he looked like. And we all thought, wait a minute, is this like from some other TV show that he did? But no, because it's from the official BBC press release, and they wouldn't say, oh, here's Neil Patrick Harris from a series of unfortunate events or something, and that wasn't it. So he was in a different costume for his official BBC press photo release, and then he was in a way different costume when he's on location shooting Doctor Who with David Tennant, because he's back in Doctor Who too. So if you haven't heard what he is, good for you. You may be the last person to know who to be in on the speculation of who Neil Patrick Harris is playing here for the 60th anniversary episodes of Doctor Who, which will air in a year and a half's time.
You'll forget all this. Then you'll remember it again.
I know. It's amazing.
I really hope I forget a lot of the things I've seen inadvertently.
I know. Yeah. How you feeling about that now, Chris? Because I know we were initially kind of like, cool, set photos. This is kind of fun. Let's try and solve this. And then like our earlier instincts were kicking in. Us says, oh no, wait. We try to avoid looking for spoilers, but now I feel like I don't know. I'm on the fence. Where are you on set reports and spoilers now, Chris?
I'm still there in so far as like there's that initial little desire to know what's going on well in advance of anything hitting the airwaves. But after a certain point, it's like I don't want to know too much, so I just scale back, and now I'm not really averse to anything because I can't help avoid things because people are dicks. But
fair enough.
Wow.
But I'm not actively seeking out anything right now.
No. What about you, Warren? Are you
I mean, I think stuff is leaking into my feed, and I'm like, okay, I guess I'll look at this. But I'm not going to look for it, but it's just kind of, like Chris says, things are just kind of showing up. And I think that's just down to the initial excitement of, oh my God, publicity for once. And that'll die down too in a little bit. But for right now, the high of people actually wanting us to know things about this show we like has clouded my judgment, I guess.
It is kind of fun.
I appreciate and understand the excitement over people sharing these photos and reports and what they think is correct inside information, whatever. I get that, but I think they need to realize that not everyone shares their perspective and needs to maybe just chill out a little bit.
Yeah. Mute the hashtag DWSR on Twitter if you don't want to know anything. Yeah. That's the best advice.
And hope that people saying things are actually using that hashtag so you can skip their content.
Yeah. I've been wondering, like, I'm trying to think of like publicly filmed moments in modern Doctor Who, mostly history, that have been like revelatory or climactic moments in the actual episode. I can think of
Cybermen.
The Cybermen, obviously. I mean, if there's going to be Cybermen, it's going to be tough. The Missy reveal, I think, didn't
I think so, yeah.
Did she say something different?
Yeah.
It's basically kind of like them telling Dave Prowse to say, I killed your father, when actually James Earl Jones is going to overdub, I am your father for Empire Strikes Back.
They shot different takes with different wording, I think.
Yeah. I've often wondered, like, do writers of Doctor Who, i.e. like the showrunners essentially, do they structure their episodes and going, we're going to have this big twist reveal. Oh, wait, it's going to be in the middle of, Times Square in New York, or like something where they know where people can actually see it? Or do they specifically structure their episodes where the most cattywampus big revelations actually happen in studio or some remote location where they can control the crowd access? And so the stuff that they shoot in the crowd, in public, is like not throwaway, but not essential to the overall plot of the episode, because it's safer to do that. I wonder if they actually structure it that way.
I think there's an element of that, but I also think that, especially with the Missy one, that's just where the story has to go. They're going to write the story the way it has to be written, and you just got to adapt the circumstances that it provides.
Mm-hmm. Because the bits they're shooting now in Bristol, which I know, here's another topic of discussion, because poor Rachel Talalay has come down with COVID, but she's still directing remotely. She posted some photos on Twitter of her basically on a laptop, like she's just looking at the rushes or something on a laptop. And on the clapperboard right now, there's a director called Chanya Button who has directed some UK TV. She's listed as director. I don't know if she was originally supposed to direct whatever episode is being shot right now with Neil Patrick Harris, or have they brought her in to direct while Rachel Talalay is down with COVID and monitoring things from beyond. I don't know, but
or is it something else, like some union rule saying because Talalay has to do it remotely?
That wouldn't surprise me.
I don't think it's a union thing. I don't think we have unions as much anymore with the director. Certainly not with Rachel Talalay. Well, maybe she's trying. I don't know.
She's a member of all three. Well, at least definitely DGC and DGA. I know that.
Yeah.
And whatever the British equivalent, I would assume she is too.
Right.
But
okay,
it is kind of insane that you can do that. Like the idea of remote directing without the pandemic, I don't think that would have ever been a thing. But it's kind of interesting that she can direct remotely.
Well, Peter Jackson was doing it for the some of the later shoots of the Lord of the Rings, because they needed to wrap them up, and so he was basically having to direct some things remotely, which in the late '90s, early 2000s was a big leap ahead. Sorry, Chris, you were saying.
Well, I just like the way that you put it, where if this was the 1960s or 70s, the director would be up in the gallery looking at a monitor anyway.
Kind of same thing,
it's not really that different.
It's an homage. It's an homage to Pennant Roberts directing Doctor Who.
Yes, everything's an homage to Doctor Who, as we've established.
Obviously it is, and every single other BBC TV show from back then. So I don't know, but from what I gather, just because the fact that Rachel Talalay is still on it, it hasn't been officially confirmed, but it's been widely believed, and I've known about this since January, and even then I've been hearing 3 specials with David Tennant, and the fact that we're probably well into special number 2, I get the impression that maybe Rachel Talalay is directing all 3 of them. I don't know that for sure.
I hope so.
But yeah, I would get. And if so, does that mean that they are, thematically similar? I don't know. They tell a cohesive story. It's not just 3 standalone specials. It's like a 3-episode arc. I don't know. This is all speculation on my part, given that they have the same director. But honestly, you can have different directors directing different episodes for different things. But
the Slithian trilogy, gotcha.
Yeah.
So long as she doesn't burn herself out. I'll take all the Talalay we're going to get given here. So.
If she directs all 3, she's back in the miniscope. That's the big news here, I think, that we've just broken on Radio Free Skaro.
I'm sure she cares.
Stories, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I know, but the Boke rule is, yeah. Anyway, Doctor Who currently filming in public in Bristol. Maybe they're done now. I'm not too sure how long they've been shooting. It's very exciting. Everyone's very excited about Doctor Who again. Neil Patrick Harris in the cast, shooting stuff. David Tennant, Doctor Who. There you go. That's your current events. As I mentioned off the top of the show, Doctor Who Redacted is a podcast, Doctor Who podcast, that launched on the same day that Legend of the Sea Devils aired, April 17th, and it wraps up on Sunday, June 19th. Here is an interview that I had with director and producer Ella Watts about Doctor Who Redacted. Doctor Who Redacted is a 10-part Doctor Who spin-off podcast that started on April 17th on BBC Sounds. The finale drops the same day this episode of Radio Free Skaro is out, June 19th. And the director and producer of Doctor Who Redacted, Ella Watts, joins me now. Hello, Ella.
Hello. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you on the podcast. How does it feel now? Now that after 10 weeks, the show is finally wrapped up. How's it feel sort of coming to an end to this journey?
if it's not too cheesy, I do feel like I need a TARDIS and I need to just go back to the start. I can't believe that over 2 months has passed already. There has been like a lot of anxiety. Every new episode, I'd be like, well, people liked the last one, but are they gonna like this one? I don't know. And like lots of kind of nail biting. I'm both excited for the last episode to be out and for me to kind of have the relief of seeing what people think, good and bad. But also still very, very, very nervous because we're recording this before it's actually out, and I don't know how people are going to respond yet. You haven't heard it yet, so nope. Yeah, gosh, I hope you like it. But yeah, mostly just excited, overwhelmed, nervous, all the things.
That's awesome. To summing up, what is Doctor Who Redacted all about?
So the short summary is that 3 queer women who are broke have to try and save the world when something begins to seemingly redact the Doctor from reality. The longer summary is that everyone and everything the Doctor has ever known seems to be disappearing from reality. And it's not just that people are going missing, it's that their existence is being retroactively erased, so no one remembers that they ever existed. It also seems to be that people who knew the Doctor best are disappearing first, which means that everyone that could have done anything to help are the first people to go. And as it turns out, there are 3 broke queer women who make an incredibly unsuccessful podcast that has less than a dozen listeners. And their podcast is so unsuccessful that they are literally the last people in reality to be erased by this effect. As these young women who know nothing about the Doctor, who don't think that they've ever met the Doctor, who haven't knowingly ever met the Doctor, they are the world's only hope. And all of the kind of competent allies of the Doctor and the badasses, like people like Martha Jones, places like UNIT, are being slowly kind of like eaten away from the inside by this kind of strange effect, which we call the redaction.
Yeah, so what you're saying is that you're both praising and dumping on Doctor Who podcasts, and that Doctor Who podcasts are the furthest possible thing away from relevant Doctor Who, and yet, and this is where you save it, Doctor Who podcasts will save the world. That's what you're saying, right, Ella?
You are putting words in my mouth. You know what? Actually, there was a thing when we first pitched this where I really wanted us to reference real-world fan Doctor Who podcasts in our drama, where like Abby, Cleo, and Shauna make a show called The Blue Box Files, and I really wanted them to say things like, and hey, yeah, on Radio Free Skaro this week, they were talking about like this thing, and to kind of have that in there. And then, you know, due to BBC things and rights things, like we couldn't go ahead with it. But like, honestly, it is supposed to be a love letter to fans of the show, past and present. It's supposed to be, my absolute favorite trope is when I see a Doctor Who podcaster out there who like goes on social media and it's like, wait, so you're telling me there's an audio drama about me? Like in the Doctor Who universe? I'm like, yes, correct. That is what is happening. But no, I mean, I think most people do better podcasts than Abby, Cleo, and Shauna. I think the idea is that like we're at this stage of podcasting and podcast development where I think we did cross the 1 billion podcast mark last year. Podcasts these days are like the equivalent of going down into your basement to start a band with your friends. Like, it's really just, they make this show as an excuse to stay in touch with each other. And that's something that I think is really lovely about podcasting. Not necessarily always editorially sound, but really, really lovely.
Present company excluded, of course.
Obviously.
How did this whole Doctor Who Redacted come about?
Gosh, okay, so back in 2019, I pitched this. Yeah, it's been a long time coming. I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't think that this would ever happen, and I'm very happy that it has, but I still am not completely sure that I'm not living in a dream. So yeah, back in 2019, the Doctor Who brand kind of opened an internal call in the BBC for a new Doctor Who podcast. And they specifically wanted something for like an audience they felt they weren't currently serving. So they wanted something for like young women under 35 and working class communities, because they felt like there were lots of different like Doctor Who auxiliary materials that they felt were serving like various audiences really well. But they felt like that audience was being underserved. What actually happened was I was brought into a meeting. I wasn't told what the meeting was about. And then once we sat down, someone from Doctor Who said, "Hi, I'm, so-and-so from Doctor Who, and we're going to talk about the Doctor Who podcast. So this is the pitch meeting where you pitch a podcast idea." And I was like, what? And so I was like sitting at this table and I had my notebook out, and as everyone was introducing themselves, I was just ignoring them, like madly like writing down podcast ideas. Like I've got this like serious like serial killer double page of doodles of me just like coming up with ideas for a Doctor Who show. And I pitched like a couple different ideas in the meeting, and the one that everyone liked was this idea where I kind of summarized it as BuzzFeed Unsolved, but Doctor Who. Because I was really into BuzzFeed Unsolved at that time, and I thought the idea of like a kind of Last Podcast on the Left style Doctor Who audio drama would be very, very fun. And so then for like 6 months, it was a 2-page A4 document that I just sent around with a screenshot of BuzzFeed Unsolved being like, this would be a good thing to make, maybe. And then finally they took me seriously enough that they gave us some money for a pilot, at which point we needed a writer. So I contacted Juno Dawson, and she actually came up with like some of the characters. We had a writer's room with 2 of our writers, Sasha Sienna and Catherine Brinkworth, where we kind of worked out the plot. And then from there, it kind of like, from there we made a pilot, and then there was 2 years of other stuff that happened. But hey, we're here now, so that's the main thing.
Right. So you when I started listening to it, I was kind of reminded of a similar thing, which a show called Only Murders in the Building, which is on, I don't know where it is in the UK, but it's on Hulu and Disney Plus here in Canada, which basically centers around 3 people, 2 of them played by, there's like Steve Martin and Martin Short and everything like that. They do a podcast about murders, and then they sort of stumble upon a murder. But this actually predates it quite a bit. When you say 2019, goodness me.
Yeah. And I mean, to be fair, like so in my free time, which is increasingly diminishing, I am kind of an audio drama expert. And like, this is quite a common trope within the world of like audio drama and nonfiction, right? Of like the podcasters who accidentally get sucked into their story. So like anything from like Limetown and the Black Tapes, to kind of more recent stuff like the BBC's Lovecraft Investigations, and even something like the Magnus Archives. It's not a podcast, it's an archive, but it's still like an audio diary where he gets sucked into like the reality of these spooky stories that he's talking about. And then stuff like the Battersea Poltergeist and Uncanny, which really play with that line of like, we're investigating ghosts and hauntings, but are we being haunted? Do we believe in ghosts? Who knows? This is nonfiction. And so like, I think that trope is, it can be really interesting. But I also think specifically, and it's interesting to talk to you about this actually, audio drama kind of died a death in the US between like the 1960s and the 1980s, at least as far as radio drama is concerned. And it obviously continued in the UK on BBC Radio 4, which is like one of the biggest commissioners of audio drama in the world. But what it means is that a lot of listeners in the US and Canada are not really used to listening to audio drama. And so lots of people are very accustomed to listening to live radio and therefore to podcasts where there's like chat, there's conversation, there's speculation, there's debate, there's music, whatever. But people are a lot less comfortable with the idea of listening to something scripted. And even though shows like Welcome to Night Vale, but also stuff like The Thrilling Adventure Hour, We're Alive, like it kind of like picked that all back up in the kind of like late 2000s. It's still kind of like a niche thing. And so I think a lot of the time when audio dramas start out with this device of like, it's a non-fiction podcast, it's because from my perspective, from our perspective, when we were making Redacted, we wanted to encourage people who hadn't listened to audio drama before to listen to this. And we felt like hearing a kind of true crime paranormal-y style, kind of jokey conversational show between 3 women would feel a lot more comfortable and a lot less intimidating to people who are used to listening to nonfiction, than just kind of going in and being like, this is our space opera, take it or leave it.
Right. And I mean the premise of the show, the 3 hosts are basically looking, are finding out mysteries about the Doctor. They don't know much about Doctor Who at all in the drama of it. The lead character, Cleo, Charlie Craggs, has never watched Doctor Who before this. So was it important to sort of get that fresh perspective from someone who had never actually watched Doctor Who going into this, to sort of try and appeal to an audience that perhaps had never seen the show?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, I grew up watching Doctor Who. I love Doctor Who, and I love people who love Doctor Who. But I also think that sometimes Doctor Who can suffer a little bit of an Ouroboros effect, where like there's so much kind of eating its own tail and self-referencing and being so very conscious of this like massive monolith of media that precedes you, that it can be difficult to align that with like the kinds of stories that people want to tell now and the kinds of stories that people are watching and listening to now. And again, like, you know, I was specifically given this task as a producer to appeal to an audience that the Doctor Who brand felt was underserved. That meant that they felt like the things that Doctor Who does really well, like self-referencing, like bringing back characters, like engaging in that really rich back catalogue in the way that Big Finish does, they felt that that wasn't working for a big group of people. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, okay, if that doesn't work, then I need to do something very different to that. And step one of that is to step outside of Doctor Who and be like, okay, so who can I bring in who can actually give me that perspective? Like Charlie is a working class woman who can tell me whether or not she thinks this drama is fun or funny, or she would listen to it even if she doesn't have the context of Doctor Who. Obviously, I did then make her watch Doctor Who,
right.
Which she really loved, and it was very funny and cute to me, where she came in on the second day and she was like, oh my god, it's so camp, I'm obsessed. And then she was like, okay, I'm going to be the next Billie Piper. It's important. Like, Billie, I'm coming for you. But yeah, like, I think it was important to me to make sure that we brought in people who were outside of Doctor Who as well as people who were within it.
Mm-hmm. Juno Dawson, as a Veyer, has spoken up and spoken out for the trans community in her works in the past, and does it here again. This Doctor Who Redacted is very much a Doctor Who trans story told from a trans perspective. Was it important? How important was it to sort of tell it from a trans perspective? And when did that sort of become the focal point of it?
Oh, I mean, it was like of paramount importance. Mm-hmm. At first, it was just like a general idea of queer women. Like, I am a queer woman, I'm bi, and I wanted to tell, like, an intersectional feminist story about, like, being a queer woman. It was really important to me that at least one of our main characters was a woman of color, but I didn't have a writer. And then I was kind of looking into who could possibly write it, and I'm like, okay, well, I need someone who appeals to young adult audiences. I need someone who's an intersectional feminist. I need someone who knows Doctor Who like the back of her hand. And just like all of those factors led into, like, it became more and more obvious that Juno was like one of the best choices. Like, I'd also read her novel The Good Doctor, which was the first novelization and technically the first piece of canon material that the 13th Doctor is in. Mm-hmm. And I'd really, really loved that. And I was like, okay, like, this is kind of the thing I want to do. And she'd done some Torchwood Big Finish adventures as well. So I knew she could write for audio, and I knew she could write something that I would enjoy for audio. And so I approached her and I said, like, I want to make a point of this being like a queer feminist drama. And obviously, like, Juno's also like, well, okay, like, one of them's going to be trans, one of them's going to be a lesbian, one of them's going to be bi. And it's like, great, amazing. As soon as Juno's involved, like, I wanted to make the story be as much as possible about trans women and trans people. I think, like, also in both of our minds, I don't want to speak for Juno, actually. So at least in my mind, there were a couple of things, which was that the Doctor regenerating as a woman obviously has really big trans meta-narrative vibes, right? Mm-hmm. But Jodie Whittaker is a cisgender woman. And, like, there still are very, 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 very few transgender characters or actors in the wider Doctor Who canon. There aren't none, but, like, there are very few. And I felt like, as like a queer woman, but just as a person living in the world, that it was such a shame to see the Doctor Who TV show repeatedly kind of walking towards trans stories, but never actually letting a trans writer write a trans story about a trans character played by a trans actor. And it just felt like that was like a natural progression for like the whole brand. So I really, really wanted to kind of be like, hey, yes, there are like really big trans vibes with the fact that the Doctor is changing gender right now. Let's kind of like have fun with that and celebrate that. And then also just the fact that, like, I don't know how aware you are, but in the UK right now, we are at this awful boiling point of like anti-trans sentiment, including by the BBC. And I say that as someone who has worked with the BBC and loves the BBC, but also is not currently employed there. My views don't represent the BBC, and the BBC has platformed some very, very transphobic content in the last year. And I think that for me, just as a person living in the world, like when I'm having conversations with my trans friends who are saying to me, hey, I'm probably going to be murdered or commit suicide in the next 5 years, but I just want you to know that I'm happy that I made this choice, and like, don't be sad because I was happy about it. If I'm having those real life conversations with people in their 20s who are so sure that they're going to die because of the way that UK media is right now, then there are very few things more important to me than telling stories about trans people and telling good stories about trans people that are written by trans people. And so like the further we went into this process, and as time went on, like I said, this started in 2019, over the last 3 years, as like hate against the trans community got worse and worse in the UK, to the point where right now the British government is ruling to ban conversion therapy against like gay people, but not against trans people. They think conversion therapy for trans people should still be legal, and they've introduced that exception. Like there were few things I would fight harder for than making this a trans story. But yeah, it kind of evolved over time.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, it represents the Doctor Who fan community, I think, a lot more. You know, the Doctor Who fan community is much more trans-friendly than the world at large. I grew up very sheltered in a small town in Western Canada. And only when I started going to Doctor Who conventions did I realize how much of a wider universe not only Doctor Who fandom is, but humanity. You know, I met so many queer people and so many trans people in the course of just being a Doctor Who fan that it's widened my perspective and seen how lovely humanity is, honestly. So to hear those voices finally on a Doctor Who related brand like Doctor Who Redacted. Now we have Yasmin Finney's in the most recent thing that they're shooting now for next year. So like, you know, it's taken a long time to break down barriers, but I do like hearing those voices and hearing their stories in a Doctor Who property. So well done on that.
Thank you. I mean, like, I said this a lot, like, whilst I was developing the show, extremely lovingly, as a person who has ADHD and is autistic and is bisexual, which is, like, I do think that Doctor Who is, like, a kind of haven for the freaks and geeks of the world. Like, everyone who was, like, bullied at school, people who had a hard time, like, finding other people who felt like they stood out or, like, they didn't fit in some way, or, like, everyone else. Like, for me, I felt like I was working on Linus when everyone else was working on Mac, you know? Like, I was like, there's a communication error happening here, and I don't know what it is, but there's something going on. And like, and then you find Doctor Who fans, and you're like, oh my God, you're my people. Like, this is safe, this is joyful, this is loving. And I mean, you know, it's because the Doctor and the Doctor's companions are people who are going to accept you no matter what. If you've got 16 tentacles, or if you're bright blue, or if you're an alien, or if you're queer, or if you're autistic, and like that matters and has mattered to people for 60 years. And I think it's made an incredible fandom. And, you know, as much as this show was supposed to be like to bring people in who hadn't listened to Doctor Who before, I also tried to kind of sneak in as much love to Doctor Who fans as I could, in kind of the detail.
It's there. I won't spoil it, but there is a great missing episodes gag that I was not expecting, and I laughed. I chortled when I heard it. When you listen to it, folks, you'll know. I want to talk about other, like the actual production aspects of it as well. But I mentioned Charlie Craggs before. She obviously has a public profile and on social media and stuff. But this is her first acting role. So how did you find her to be the lead of a Doctor Who podcast?
Oh my gosh, honestly, it's Juno. It is all down to Juno. So basically, we came up with these characters, and we didn't have like hard specifics for the characters. We were like, okay, well, we really want Abby to be a carer because we want to talk about the life of carers in the UK, especially young carers. We really want Shauna to be a woman of colour because a lot of her cynicism about the police and about government comes from the fact that she is a woman of colour. And we really wanted Cleo to be a trans woman who grew up on a council estate because of like themes of class and trans stuff we've already mentioned. And then it came to auditioning people for the role of Cleo, and I was talking to Juno about it and contacting like a couple of different agencies, getting a few people to send in auditions, and Juno goes, to be completely honest with you, Ella, I was trying to write a character who is a trans woman who grew up on a council estate in London, so I based her on the trans woman I know who grew up on a council estate in London. And I think it would be silly not to ask Charlie Craggs to play Charlie Craggs, because that's basically what Juno wrote. Like, when Juno wrote Cleo's voice, it's Charlie. And so we asked Charlie to audition. And she was just incredible. She has this like energy to her and to her performance, this absolute just vivacity and joy that was just incredible. So I got her in on the pilot, and she's the only actor who actually survived the pilot into the series, because everyone who heard that pilot was just like, well, I'm in love with Cleo and I need Cleo to be there, and I need Charlie to be Cleo. And I think that she does a great job. She was so nervous on the first day. She said a few times like that she got halfway through the first day, she honestly thought she was going to get fired. She came up to me, she was like, listen, if you want to let me go, I completely understand. I've told my mom, she's going to come pick me up. And I was like, darling, no. But it was just amazing. Like across the course of the 2 weeks, we recorded a studio called Sonica Studios in London, and the sound engineer there, Paul, he kind of came up to me at the end of the 2 weeks and he was like, it has been like, they record video games there, they record animated TV shows, they record a lot of radio drama. And he was like, just watching her develop as an actor, even in these 2 weeks, it's incredible. It's jaw dropping. Like, I think that she really, really grows, like even across the course of the series. Yeah, I think she's fantastic. I really hope she does more acting work.
Mm-hmm. How? I mean, you were the director of it. How was it? I suppose to direct a first-time actor. Like, how do you sort of do? You have to do like several takes to sort of coax a performance out of that you want? Do you sort of let her explore it and sort of like you'll work with it? I mean, what's the approach that you take for that?
Yeah, I mean, like, so to start with, we definitely had like a couple more takes than maybe you usually would, just to make sure that we'd got everything right. But also, there were a couple of different ways I approached it. First of all, I invited Jacob Hawley to play Jordan, Cleo's brother, and he's not an actor either. And the reason that I got him to do that is that Jacob has a series of interview podcasts for BBC Sounds, starting with Jacob Hawley on drugs, and I know that he's an extremely good interviewer. And the reason he's a very good interviewer is he's very good at making people feel comfortable. Jacob comes from a working class background, who grew up just outside of London, and I knew that if I put him in the room with Charlie, then his instinct would be to make her feel comfortable, because that's what he does. And he would make her feel comfortable, and he'd make some jokes, and they'd have some common ground, and then from there she'd relax enough to sound like a normal person, which is what I needed her to do for this podcast. Mm-hmm. And so we recorded all of the Jordan and Cleo stuff first, so that like I could essentially break Charlie into the kind of harder stuff. We also started with a lot of the more kind of info dumpy exposition-y scenes. So stuff like the conversation with Penny, we did quite early on, like wherever there's kind of like just like interstitial like scenes that are essentially just moving from place to place and aren't demanding a lot of like emotional work. And then we kind of, I backloaded the schedule so that all of the girls' scenes where it was the three of them together, like when they're doing the Blue Box Files and stuff like that, was at the end of each week. So by that point, like they've had a couple of days to get to know each other. They're feeling like quite warm and together. They've got a little bit of that like weird kind of trauma solidarity you get when you're in a recording process and you're like halfway through and you're like, wow, we're really in it now. Right. And so they actually sound like they like each other and they care about each other, because by that point they did, and they'd gotten to know each other. And it also meant that like kind of then putting the emotional stuff into our second week meant that by that point Charlie was feeling a bit more confident in herself. She'd gotten a little bit more accustomed to like the language of like what I was using around directing, the way that we wanted to act in an audio drama. She'd also had a chance to talk to Lois and Holly, who are both quite experienced actors, and I will admit that I kind of was very happy to encourage them to like talk to Charlie like in the breaks and kind of like give her tips and stuff about like how they do stuff. They're both they're consummate professionals, so every time Charlie would like feel a little nervous, they'd be kind of there to reassure her. And by the time we get into the second week, Charlie's feeling so confident that she's reassuring them if they're kind of stumbling over a take. and then, you know, beyond that, it's kind of just like basics of directing, right, which is like asking people to call on their real lived experience. And with Charlie, like that was a lot easier because she is so similar to Cleo. So there's even a line in episode 3, which is quite early on in our recording, but she just couldn't get her head around it, which was talking about like the Victoria line is gone and it's been replaced by the Southern line, and Queen Victoria, a statue of Queen Victoria is gone, and all this. And I eventually just kind of like sat down with Charlie, was like, okay, I need you to respond to this. You are a Londoner. Imagine that there's been some absolute Banksy nonsense that's been pulled, and your whole day at work has been delayed because all the tubes are shut because everyone's announced that now the Victoria line doesn't exist anymore, and there's a huge crowd and it's really annoying and inconvenient, and also now there's all these tourists here. And then she could kind of give me the performance that I needed, which was her being an annoyed Londoner, being like, oh, for God's sake, not this now. You know, and then kind of bringing that into other stuff. She actually texted me about She lost a friend to suicide not long ago, and when we were recording was over the anniversary of that person's passing. And when she's doing her scenes about her dad, she's thinking about her friend, and she's like bringing in her real grief. Yeah, like there's just a couple of moments like that where she really brings it in. There's a scene in episode 10 that made me cry when we recorded. Mm-hmm. And I have a video of that. And I think it was like a moment where like Charlie's performance and Juno's writing kind of synced up in a way that got me, a Doctor Who fan, very badly. But yeah, it was lovely to see her grow. Mostly just encouraging her to trust herself. I think she did a good job.
How was it all recorded then? Was it recorded? I mean, we're still in phasing out of the pandemic. So was it like recorded all in the same place? Was it recorded remotely? How was it done?
Yeah, so we had a weird kind of combination. So we were recording at a studio called Sonica Studios, and one of the great things about Sonica is that they are like very well fitted to be COVID safe. So essentially each of our performers was in a separate room. Obviously everyone had to do COVID tests before coming in, and then wear masks like in the building. And then we had a social area like outside where they could go. And then outside of that, they're in like closed doors, separated rooms. And what each of them had was like a camera in front of them and a screen where they could see each other. And they've obviously got headphones on so they can hear each other, but they're recording in separate rooms in the same building. But what that meant was when people, when they had like breaks and stuff, they could have a bit of a chat to each other, get used to each other. And also we could have the kind of studio experience of not having to worry about kind of like internet lag and things breaking down and that sort of nonsense. So it was a lovely experience. I strongly recommend Sonica Studios to any drama producer who might be listening to this. I really do. They're absolutely lovely. Yeah, very proud to say that no one got COVID off the back of our recording. I
Yay!
was very, very strict about safety, and it worked. So, you know.
Yeah. I think I'm not disparaging Big Finish here at all, because they've done a lot of great work. But I think what kind of lured me in is that the episodes are only 20 minutes long. Was that an intentional thing to sort of make the episodes a little more digestible and accessible for someone who maybe hadn't tried audio drama before?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like I said before, we really wanted to encourage people to give audio drama a try if they hadn't before. And one way to make that easier is, like you say, to make episodes shorter. I think a lot when I think about audio drama of, long story, but a discourse in museology, which is like, there's a book called The Civilizing Museum, and basically there was this belief in the 1800s that when someone walked into a museum, they became civilized by it. And this is obviously deeply problematic for a number of reasons, not to mention the colonialism, the imperialism, and the classism. But what it means is that it's had this really long-lasting effect where people feel like they have to be dead quiet in museums. They can't touch things in museums. They're not smart enough to be in a museum. That you need to have a certain level of like education and cultural capital before you're even allowed to go inside, which obviously is the exact opposite of what you want a public heritage building to be about, because you want everyone to be able to come in. And I feel like sometimes that happens a little bit with audio drama, especially in the UK, because BBC radio drama has such a like long and venerated history that a lot of the time, like, just normal people feel like, oh, well, you know, but BBC radio drama isn't for me. That's kind of for posh, fancy people who have PhDs and go to Schubert concerts and operas. And so, like, one of the ways that we're breaking that down is by being like, no, it's a short episode. They're being silly. They're talking about Harry Styles and alien fetuses in jars. Like, this is not too fancy. This is not trying to teach you a lesson. This is really just here to talk to you where you are in your day, on your way to work, or coming home, or, you know, doing your dishes. I wanted it to feel, I don't know, I guess just like ground level, like looking you in the eye instead of looking down.
Mm-hmm. And you are in no way starting a civil war or anything with Big Finish and all that they do, right?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No, I love Big Finish. Part of the reason I love Doctor Who audio drama is because of Big Finish. Like, I hired 3 Big Finish writers because of how much I love Big Finish. We got David K. Barnes involved. We got Doris V. Sutherland involved. Like I said, I found Juno because she'd done Big Finish audio dramas. I've said a lot on social media that I like to think of Redacted as the kind of like Doctor Who audio drama pipeline. So, you know, you kind of get a taste with Redacted where you come in on the free thing and then you're like, ooh, maybe I'll try some more Doctor Who audio drama. And then I kind of like go check out Big Finish. Here's a link. Here's a website. Here's a social media account to check them out. But yeah, no, absolutely not. Like, I think we are trying to do different things in different ways, and both are important. Like, I love what Big Finish has done to preserve, like, the heritage of Doctor Who as a show and as a piece of art, but also just what they've done in terms of continuing the heritage of audio drama in the UK and independent audio drama in the UK outside of the BBC. And I think that those things are incredibly important. And I also think that lots of people feel a little bit intimidated by the idea of engaging with like maybe characters they haven't heard of, doctors they haven't seen if they're younger and they haven't engaged with Classic Who, and like of buying stuff. And even though Big Finish obviously has lots and lots of free demos and has lots of ways to help people get involved, like I can also see how people feel a little bit intimidated when they first start. And so what I want is for Doctor Who Redacted to be, yeah, like I said, the pipeline into it, like your gateway drug into Big Finish.
Right. It's we haven't, as I said, I haven't listened to episode 10. It's the finale that drops on June 19th. Was this always, not to spoil it, I guess, was it always intended to be a 10-part complete story, or are there going to be continuing adventures for Doctor Who Redacted?
This has always been intended to be a 10-part complete story because we don't know if we'll get to make more.
Right.
I can say that I've been told people at Doctor Who really love it right now and would love for us to make more of it, but it really comes down to a decision by BBC Sounds. And BBC Sounds is going to base their decision on how many people listen to the show. So if enough people listen, then we might get to make more. If people don't listen, then we won't. And so a thing that I've been saying a lot on social media is just like, you know, if you like Redacted and if you want us to make more, please tell your friends, because it really is going to be the deciding factor on whether or not we get to make more of this story. The cast and crew really want to make more. Charlie wants to make more. Juno wants to make more. I want to make more. Everyone's really in love with the project, and that's been wonderful to have from a kind of behind the scenes perspective. Like everyone's got like ideas for what they want to do. Holly and Lois love it. Jacob loves it. But at the end of the day, we have to be commissioned by someone because I have to pay people to work, and we need to have the download figures and the audience numbers to like justify that expense for the BBC. If they're going to be spending taxpayer money, they have to know that they are actually serving taxpayers because taxpayers are listening to it. And it's not just British audiences. Like if we get international audiences in, then that still counts towards our like total download figure. But it's really just at this point about spreading the word. I'm nervous and excited and nervous. I desperately want to make more, and I just don't know if we will. But hopefully more people will listen, and maybe we'll get there.
I hope so too. And BBC Sounds is available worldwide. I know because I've listened to it on BBC Sounds. You only need an account to sign up, I believe. But other than that, you can listen to everything on BBC Sounds worldwide. Is that right?
Yes, you can. Any device, wherever you are in the world, it's completely free. And, you know, you don't have to get emails and stuff if you don't want any. And the BBC is a government body, so they're not going to mine your personal data or sell it to third parties or anything like that. Like, it's really just that the reason that they're sending people to the Sounds app is because, again, because they are a public funded body, they have a responsibility to like monitor whether or not people listen to their shows, and are they actually reflecting audience interests? Are they actually serving a young audience or a working class audience, that kind of thing? So the data is like collected for that reason, but it is not used for advertising. This is a public funded body. It's not going to be sending you any adverts for MeUndies. It really is just a free app that you can download anywhere on any device. And if you're having any trouble with it, then contact the support place or like at me on Twitter, because then I will help you figure it out. But like I promise you can get it.
I can confirm that. I randomly said, I'm having trouble with my BBC Sounds. I tagged no one, and Ella got back to me. So amazing. And that's why we're talking today. But not only that, of course, we're talking about Doctor Who Redacted, which is great. I feel great that someone in Canada actually can affect the BBC downloads. It's like my greatest dream. I affected overnight ratings in a way. We can talk about them in stats. Well, best of luck with hopefully future Doctor Who Redacted. Best of luck with the finale. I look forward to listening to it when this podcast is out, because it means that the episode will be out too. And a great job with Doctor Who Redacted, Ella Watts, and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ella. That was fun. We had fun talking about Doctor. I hope I get to see her in person one day, because she's very nice, and I'm going to be in the UK in 2023 in Swansea. Generations. You'll be there next month, Chris. That's gonna be fun. I saw that our friend Graham Burke is there right now, as of this as of recording. He went to Liverpool. He went to see that Doctor Who exhibit thing. Yep. I want to call it Doctor Who. What was it called? What was the damn thing called?
A sciencey thing, but yeah.
Is it a science thing? Oh, it's just a bunch of Daleks and crap like that. But
the important thing about Graham Burke's picture is A, he's with Alex Kennard, fine fellow in his own right. But B, he has a T-shirt for his PBS station in Buffalo, which made me go down a rabbit hole to see if there's a KSPS T-shirt, and there is not, that I can tell, unfortunately.
Well, we better make one, Warren, honestly.
Yes.
I mean...
From the 80s logo. It's got to be the 80s logo.
Well, obviously it has to be like, I mean, come on. How are people going to know that we're friends of 7 if we don't tell everyone about
and
it?
I currently am a friend of 7.
Although you're not, because you do not like Sylvester McCoy's Doctor Who.
I'm a friend of the proper 7, the real Doctor, which is KSPS Spokane.
Okay. All you millennial kids from not Canada don't have the same experience that we did growing up. Watching it on PBS stations.
An incredibly narrow niche. Why aren't the rest of you like the three of us?
Your memories of discovering Doctor Who are inferior to ours, let me tell you.
Okay.
You don't know it, but you're so jealous of us. You're so jealous of us and having to watch Doctor Who on KSBS.
Doctor Who Worlds of Wonder, for what it's worth.
Worlds of Wonder. Isn't that the new Doctor Strange movie? Is that what that's called?
No, that's the Multiverse of Madness.
No, I know. I'm just being...
I'm
being flippant.
I can't help. I can't help but respond.
I know you can't, because you're a Marvel apologist. You like to defend
Marvel
these
pedant,
movies.
More like
Marvel pedant, yes, because if any
no, like I'm not an apologist. There's nothing to apologize for. Only you think there's something to apologize for.
I know, yeah. It's like people leap to their defenses when they think, well, it is like literally the most lucrative film franchise of all time.
I'm just stating a fact, which is what the actual title is. I'm neither defending nor decrying.
Doctor Strange and the Moons of Madness. I'm going to call it from now on.
Well, it's probably a comic book series.
Yeah.
BuzzFeed yesterday released an interview with Chris Evans playing with puppies. So
that's the one they did with Ewan McGregor playing with puppies before.
Lots of celebs over the last few years with that. But yes,
I like puppies.
That same series.
I'm there for the puppies.
His Boston really comes out in it.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh.
Yeah, it certainly does.
I liked him. He's the only thing I liked from those Star Trek movies. Him as Captain Kirk. That was good.
Nope.
Moving on. It's time
Chris
for the time
Hemsworth
lapse.
played Kirk's father, so
whatever. There's going to be like 8 different Captain Kirks now in Star Trek. Anyway, enough of that. Enough of that nonsense. It's time for the time lapse where we look back and chastise other people's history with Doctor Who because it's not as good as ours.
Can I just point out, enough of that nonsense? It's all your nonsense.
I know it's all my nonsense. I bring it up so I can smack it down. I'm only here to ask questions. I'm just asking questions.
God. Let's went somewhere I don't want it to go.
June 19th, 1965. The Chase, Episode 5, The Death of Doctor Who. Pulling out of the nosedive that was Episode 4, the worst episode of Doctor Who ever made. Aptly named when you think about it, The Death of Doctor Who, given how bad last week was. This is where Doctor Who lands on the whatever planet the big mechanoids are on. And it's kind of weird and confusing, and it has Edmund Warwick. Your favorite, Edmund Warwick, in his starring role as the Doctor, Chris.
Yep. And when you watch it, there's no distinction, no difference whatsoever between Edmund Warwick and William Hartnell. They look identical.
They do.
Same height, same facial features.
Peas in a pod. Positively 2 peas in a pod.
I do like how TV just played fast and loose with this stuff back in those days and the 70s too. Like I remember watching a soap opera as a kid, I can't remember which one, and they just go, the part of blah 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 is played by the understudy. I'm like, okay, I guess that's what's happening on TV now. It never happened now, I would assume.
No.
When you're half paying attention behind the sofa and you're watching on like this little like 11-inch crappy TV,
squint and he looks like William Hartnell.
You may not even notice. You may not be able to notice.
Yep.
You can't see through the secondhand smoke. Oh, I guess it is William Hartnell.
Blink and you miss it. Listen, I saw that meme. I never saw the Doctor Strange Moons of Madness movie, but I saw that bit from the trailer where there's that same guy running past Doctor Strange 4 times in 12 seconds in an edited sequence, and they probably thought, they won't notice it. Just like in 1965 says, they won't notice it. It's someone. Well, play a tape with William Hartnell, and it'll sync badly. They won't notice.
Well, they didn't, probably, or not as much back then. They had only one shot at noticing, so you couldn't put it on teletypes and show people, you see? Look what they're doing. Oh, God, this is terrible. Bad writing.
Bad writing. Just the limitations of technology in the 1960s. I admire them. I admire Doctor Who for its constant ability to try to stretch that boundary. Again, even when they probably shouldn't have.
Stretch that boundary, a.k.a. make mistakes.
It's so I know. It's like, I watched 60s, especially season 2. It's so ambitious. It's like, you have no business doing this, people. But God bless you for trying. I love it. I love watching the Web Planet thing. And this is the thing is that I just wish they would have got like maybe thrown a Web Planet or a Chase Dougie Camfield's way, you know, like maybe put somebody who actually knows what they're doing and not Richard Martin in charge of these massive things, you know, just saying.
Yeah, but then you probably got to squeeze a unit somehow onto the planet Vortis, and that just doesn't work.
Yeah, it's true. 1971, June 19th, season 8 wrapped. Sorry, John Pertwee season 2 for those of us in North America who bought the Blu-ray. Wrapped up with The Demons episode 5. You're right, Joe. There is magic in the world after all, as they go in the Morris dance. Thank you. I'd rather have a pint.
Is that even still a thing? It must be.
Morris dancing?
Yeah.
Oh, if Kate Bush is still a thing, then Morris dancing
good point.
certainly is. Yeah. British people never let go of their traditions. Let me tell you, Morris dancing, Kate Bush.
That's rather rich coming from somebody who can't stop talking about the 1972 series.
I know. I know. Lament for the Empire not being around anymore. You know, all those British traditions. Are all still true. And Marmite and tea and crumpets and let's face it, Doctor Who and yeah. I don't know if it's a thing. British people, is it still a thing? Do you still do Morris dancing? I mean, not that everyone is doing Morris dancing, but are there still Morris dancers on May Day in the UK? I must admit, I've never seen them in Canada, and I've never seen them anywhere apart from the Demons in Doctor Who.
I would wager, if I were a betting person, that if you looked on YouTube and search for like British Morris dancers 2022, you probably get no shortage of results.
Okay.
Yeah, probably. Also, if you're looking in Canada, East is where most of the British traditions still stick around. Like, I remember as a kid in the 70s and 80s, it was a little more, like Marks and Spencer existed here. There was a little more of it in like the prairies, but all of that has pretty much gone away here, and I would assume you'd have to go to small towns in Ontario to find real Britishy stuff.
Or Victoria, BC.
Or Victoria. No, not even Victoria. Victoria, that's kind of died out too, literally.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't been there since 1984, Warren, so I'm just going to take that as my most recent and thus current view of what Victoria, Victoria, BC is. Running Up That Hill hadn't even come out in the world yet when I last went to Victoria, BC, so... That's a lie. I was in there in 87. Anyway, 2019. Hey, this is cool. The Pandorica opens, the most crazy bonkers Doctor Who story ever.
2010, not 2019.
2019. I saw June 19th. 2010. The Pandorica opens. The beginning of the 2-part finale of Matt Smith's first season. Big speech. They filmed at Stonehenge. The actual Stonehenge, not the 18-inch high one that Spinal Tap used for their stage show. Yeah, that was exciting. Remember the Pandorica opens, everyone? Remember that?
Loved it. I loved it. And the thing I loved about it, not to bring up the end of time, but I gotta kind of, because there is an example of throwing everything at the wall and it doesn't really work. And this is where Stephen Moffat does his version of throwing everything at the wall, and it absolutely worked. And it also works because the next week it's all toned down to 3 or 4 people.
Yeah, it's amazing. Chris, what are your memories of the Pandorica opens?
I adored it. I remember. I remember a lot of, I can't remember if it was Matt Smith haters or Stephen Moffat haters, but a lot of people ragging on it for whatever reason.
Really?
But no, it's good stuff. I mean, it maybe didn't look exactly as perfect as it could have or should have or I wanted it to be, but all the throngs of Sontarans and whatever.
You're right.
And the new Paradigm Daleks in the crowd.
Nice. It's nice to see all that collection, and I mean it's the Moffat twists of everyone ganging up against the Doctor because he is the bad guy in so many cultures. I dig that.
Yeah.
Plus, not knowing how in the hell they were going to end up the next week, like because he's in that box, and how are they going to do this?
It's an idea that got reused in A Good Man Goes to War, but I mean, it's still liked it.
It is a bit, yeah. Yeah, Series 6 is a little bit of a rehash of some of the greatest bits of Series 5, but we didn't know that then, and we didn't know it back on June 19th, 2010, when the Pandorica Opens first aired. 12 years ago. Matt Smith was a sprightly 27, I think, at the time. He'll be turning 40 years old in October. Matt Smith.
My God. I just aged 20 years hearing that.
I know. Yep. Jodie Whittaker, happy birthday, Jodie Whittaker. She turned 40 this past week.
Yay.
Yeah. So, 40. Remember when 40 was old? Remember that? Remember those days?
I got news for you, my friend.
It is
Still
old.
is.
Yeah.
Ask Gen Z if they think it's old. I'm pretty sure they'll have some answers for you. Ask us back in the 80s if we thought it was old.
Oh, yeah.
Gen Z will be like, people live that old?
Yeah. Which is Gen Z again? I always get confused. I don't know which one I am.
The ones after millennials. From what I can tell, they're a cynical bunch, much like Gen X. So I think so far, and they would hate to hear me say it because I'm the equivalent of a boomer to them, that they seem okay, these kids.
Oh, all right then. Well, I like
these
them.
Millennials.
Yeah, I know. I don't like them.
To be fair, our own generation, who were watching morph into proto-boomers, and I don't like it one bit.
Listen, I watched All the President's Men on Friday, and I listened to Led Zeppelin when I was in my music discovery phase. So I've been watching stuff outside of my time anyway, so I don't even feel like I adhere to a certain generation. That's why I always have to ask which generation is which, because I'm like a person out of time. I listen to all sorts of different stuff.
It's all arbitrary nonsense anyway. Like, there's all these, the same things that were said about us, they're all lazy slackers, was exactly the same thing was said about millennials. And the millennials, I know, it's completely untrue. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah. I think the greatest generation we're calling the baby boomers. You bunch of lazy slackers. Come on.
Well, they were right. They were absolutely right. Who has ruined the world? The boomers. That's who.
Boomers.
As I do the tradition of blaming the generation before me.
As per usual. June 20th, 1964, the Sensorites began with a great cliffhanger at the end of that. Oh boy, it was a scary Sensorite coming up out in space and looking through the window and stuff. And who's this guy? Mm-hmm. Pretty crazy stuff. The Sensorites.
And that Sensorite does not say exterminate like the Dalek and Bad Wolf doing the same thing.
Do you think that Russell T Davies was thinking of that cliffhanger to the Sensorites Part 1 when he wrote that iconic moment in...
Given his level of Doctor Who fan cred and nerddom, yes,
right.
Very probably.
Yeah, absolutely.
Probably. Possibly. Yeah.
Whether
I don't mind
whether
that
it was conscious or not, I'm sure the answer is yes.
Mm. I find the Sensorites is, let's face it, a bit dull. But it has...
What?
I know, it's shocking, but there are... the description, later on in the story is when Susan drops a few lines about what Gallifrey's like, and they still use that, orange sky, silver trees. Still, that comes to the Sensorites. Also in this one, it all began as a mild curiosity in a junkyard, and now it's turned into quite a great spirit of adventure, hasn't it? That's from episode 1 of the Sensorites, folks. That's not from the Five Doctors or some iconic bit of... No, the Sensorites.
Well, there's always nuggets of gold in the crap. So
Yep, that's the Sensorites right there. Inferno, episode 7, aired June 20th, 1970. Yep. I said last week, episode 6 is probably my vote for the greatest episode of Doctor Who of all time. The greatest 25 minutes of Doctor Who. So how can you top that? Well, Inferno, episode 7 is still pretty good. That's the free will is not an illusion after all. There's that scene in this. That's... my word. It's good stuff. Any further thoughts on Inferno? This is the last time you get talked about
whips
Inferno.
by. It doesn't feel like it's 7 episodes. Just like what's coming up next doesn't feel like 10 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
There's somebody who I think tweeted at us, or was it maybe a thing on Facebook? I don't know. Somebody reached out to us, I assume in response to us talking about Inferno last week, mentioning how the mirror world is identical, where it's got its all the parallels there, except there's no Doctor.
No.
In the other world. And then it got me thinking, could you imagine how the story would take a turn if there was a Doctor in that world, and how they'd have to maybe work together, or how much they would butt heads or whatever. And
It's perfect as is. Don't besmirch it with this theory.
No, but you think
I'm
of
just trying to think of how the story could change as a result. I wasn't thinking of would it be better or worse.
no, but you think of is it Fugitive of the Jejune where we see the Joe Martin dog, and she's got like a gun, and you immediately think without knowing who she is. You thinking, is this like some weird alternate universe Doctor where instead she actually shoots everyone instead of like trying to talk to them and stuff? Like, and then they have to sort of team up and they have to, so in a way we kind of get that, but yeah. But I mean, honestly, would Doctor Who go to such a world and go, oh yeah, I love Earth. I love that fascist place.
Exactly, yeah. Only to defeat it. So the Pertwee Doctor would show up and everything's fine because the other Doctor would have fixed it already.
Yeah. Or it would have been the Master. Oh.
Could be. A good Master.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Anthony Ainley without a beard.
So everything that Anthony Ainley's been in. Yeah, it does. Beards do make you evil. June 21st. What a day in history. June 21st, 1969. The War Games, the 1960s Doctor Who, the black and white era, the Patrick Troughton era, all end in one fell swoop. And Doctor Who is off the air for 6 months. An unprecedented at the time 6 months.
Wimps. Come on.
I know. Yep, the War Games. My word, what a... I mean, very few people were watching it by the end of it, but not now. Not now. Boy, oh boy. Has any episode story like had more of a grand renaissance and reassessment than the War Games? I feel like it sort of existed as kind of like this overlong thing, and then people actually watched it, and it's great. And episode 10 is great.
Yeah,
the War Games.
I can't think of one.
Enemy of the World, at the very least. Yes.
Oh yeah,
That
maybe.
too.
Yeah.
That too. Yeah. Yeah, it's good stuff. Time Lords and stuff. The goodbye scenes. They'll forget me, won't they? Oh God.
I'd say even the Gunfighters as well. Maybe
Gunfighters too.
Maybe
Yeah,
not
that's
recently,
fair.
but it's gone through that process.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the War Games is like held up as like just like it's an iconic story now. Like even Terrence Dicks came around to it towards the end of his life, which is great. That made me very happy that.
When he co-wrote it, I would hope so.
Well, I know, but he was often like sort of like maybe self-deprecating, but kind of disparaging of it. Like, oh, there's a bit, there's a bit in the beginning, there's a bit at the end, and there's a bunch of nonsense in the middle. But no, the nonsense is what makes it great.
You also got to look at it from his point of view. It's like, here, do this thing, hurry up.
Yeah.
So it's just a different perspective
That's true.
than everybody else is going to have.
The Derek Sherwin era, everybody. I hate your script. I'm throwing it out. Oh, wait, we have to write a replacement. Terrence Dicks, guess what? You've been promoted. You're writing all of Doctor Who now.
A young Pippin Jane Baker learned this trade at his feet somehow.
Yeah, that did actually. Yeah. Also on June 21st, 2008, Turn Left
I love
aired.
it.
Yeah.
If you allow me, and the two RTDs that are coming up here, this one and then the next one,
right.
are perfect examples of the different ways RTD is great as a Doctor Who showrunner. This one is super thoughtful, really dark, well put together, and Catherine Tate is probably at her best in this. She's fantastic in it.
Boy,
But
yeah.
then the next one we're going to talk about is super fun, which also RTD excels at.
Yeah, our friend Kyle Anderson does not like Turn Left very much. I mean, he thinks it's good drama, but it doesn't actually happen. So it kind of diminishes.
Who cares? I think
know.
it's brilliant.
It's more of a dream episode when you think about it. It's just a dream.
There's so much dark stuff where I can't remember the exact line her mother gives, but it's just really cutting to her. And,
Yeah. Chris, you're gonna. What about Turn Left?
I like Amy's Choice well enough. It didn't happen.
That's true.
Also good.
Yeah. What about Turn Left though? You got any thoughts on Turn Left?
Yeah, no, it's I don't know what I can say that hasn't been said before. It's fantastic. Catherine Tate is great. It's I don't know. It's not a new idea in sci-fi. You got movies like Sliding Doors, which I'm not going to call science fiction, but it's
Never saw that.
it's a tropey premise, but
Right.
yeah, it works out. It works
totally
very well.
works. Also, bringing back Rose, and I remember thinking this at the time, I'm like, are they really going to do this? This is going to be an eye roll. And in later episodes, it kind of was an eye roll, but this episode, she's perfect. I think it really works having Rose in it.
I love her first shot of the episode. Graham Harper directed this, and it's her running up the street, but Donna is in focus in the foreground, and the camera stays in focus on her and out of focus in the background, and Rose runs up to when she meets Donna, and only then is she actually in focus. It's a great shot. Great shot. It still sticks out to me today. Of course, if this was made in North America, we would call this turn right, because turning left is an easier turn on a red light as opposed
Which
to...
North America then did in 2016.
They did. I know. Actually, that was RTD's quite clear liberal agenda coming into play here by saying turn left, and then they didn't. It took them a few years, and now we have Brexit because everybody turned left. Everyone turned right. Now look where you're at. Nothing happened. Nothing at all happened in broadcast history on June 22nd. So we move on to the 23rd. My word, what a day. The Green Death, episode 6. Joe Grant departs. What an emotional departure. It's still is an emotional departure in Doctor Who. Green Death, episode 6. Your thoughts, gentlemen?
I've never been a huge Green Death maniac. I like it well enough, but it's never really hit me the same way it has you guys. So, especially those dumb... Okay, it's unfair to make fun of Doctor Who for its bad effects, because they're everywhere, but those maggots are particularly terrible, so...
You know what? I don't know. I think they're not bad.
They were serviceable.
Yeah. You know, they're real. They're physical... I mean, now they'd just be some really weak CG monsters now, you know?
Or good CG monsters, you know that for a fact.
Yeah.
For Green Death episode 6 specifically, you talk about great shots. I mean, I was thinking of the very last one with Bessie driving down the road at sunset, and just
that is good.
It's so beautiful.
It is. Yeah. The proposal scene, it just feels real. It just felt real, that, you know, the emotion, the energy in that scene was just really great.
I mean, I it's, you know, going back to, like, you know, how Inferno could be different or whatever. If Katie Manning and Stuart Bevan weren't dating at the time, would whoever played Cliff Jones, would they have that same chemistry for that scene to work as well?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they are actors, and
they're actors. They are actors, yes, but there's still lots of examples of horrible or absence of chemistry between actors who are meant to play lovers. So.
Also, I love how the show sticks with this 40-odd years later. Like, they are still married in canon, which is great.
You know,
and in Blu-ray trailers.
Yeah, even though they broke up not long after that. But they remained friends, and of course, until Stu Bevan sadly died last year, but or earlier this year. I can't remember when it was. But
and I've said it before, I'll say it again. Stuart Bevan was a bloody treat for those behind the sofas that he did.
He was great. I know. He was great in this, too. He was great. I mean, what marvelous casting for a prominent guest role as a young hothead in Doctor Who. He was great in The Green Death. Absolutely superb. I don't know what else he did at the time, and I've certainly never seen it. But an underrated performance across all 6 episodes. Stuart Bevan as Professor Jones of the Nut Hutch. The other RTD episode that Warren was alluding to, I assume it's this one and not the next one.
Absolutely. Yes.
June 23rd, 2007. Is that 15 years ago? It's 15 years ago, folks. The Sound of Drums, the beginning of the end of season 3 of Doctor Who. Warren, what are your thoughts on The Sound of Drums?
I think it's an insane... Like, it's not Utopia, but how could it be? But it's an insane amount of fun. Sim is great in it. The running around is fantastic. This is the first time we see Gallifrey, and it blew my mind at the time. And to this day, it's a cool scene. I just think it's a hell of a lot of fun, and also at the end decimate 1/10 of the Earth's population, and they turn Tennant old. And I'm like, how'd they get out of it? Well, it turns out pretty badly. Up to that point, you're like, wow, this is a climate. It's still one of the best cliffhangers of all time, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, it's. I remember. I don't know, Chris. You got thoughts on Sound of Drums? I mean, I have some thoughts.
I enjoy the fact that the episode title, the episode was named after the Scissor Sisters song, because why not?
True. Is that a Scissor Sisters song? Is it Sound of Drums?
No. It is a obscene Scissor Sisters, because I remember listening, going, "Oh, this is a lot saltier than I thought it'd be."
Something else. Or is it a different song? No, is it that song you're thinking of features in the next episode.
Oh,
Right,
who did
yes.
that stupid song then?
The Sound of Drums?
It's a different band. Here come the drums. I can't remember who it is, though.
And we hear it, yeah. It's not Scissor Sisters, though, that's for sure.
All right.
Yeah, you're going to Google that.
I'm going to
yeah,
look it up because
I like John Sim in it. I like the Alexander Moen's
Rogue
performance.
Traders. There we go.
Rogue Traders is great in it. I'm trying to think now because I often just sort of conflate the two as one. And it's the chase around and the phone call. I remember the phone call scene between the Doctor and the Master. That was great.
Yeah.
You know,
Launched 1,000 ships.
yeah. Because I think this was deliberate. I know that sometimes I joke about, this is obviously a callback to this, but the first Doctor Master conversation in Doctor Who in season 8 in Terror of the Autons was over a phone, and I think there was a conscious allusion to that in this. He's even watching Teletubbies in the same way that the Master watches clangers in the Sea Devils. References, yes. Remember this? Remember
Good ones,
this?
though. Good references.
Yeah, it was the next episode last of the Time Wars. It has Scissor Sisters. I can't decide.
Yeah, we'll talk about that because that's one of my favorite scenes from a disappointing episode. But as I say, we'll get to that next week in the Time Lash. What have we got here? What have we got left? June 24th. A whole bunch of Evil the Daleks aired. That's great. The Time Monster wrapped up.
Good.
Sure.
Thanks for wrapping up.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for doing that. June 24th, 2006. Chris's favorite episode of all time aired. It's Fear Her.
Yeah, totally my favorite ever. Sure.
Fear Her. Do you still like it as much? Do you still have a soft spot for it, Chris? Is it
To a
how
point,
does it? Yeah. That's fun.
From a conceptual standpoint, I think it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
From a production standpoint, it's cringy as hell in a lot of ways. But
The fact that it's supposed to be summer and is shot in February, and yet they keep shooting Christmas episodes in July and thinking that it's trying to pass it off as just a really warm December.
yeah,
Yeah.
And I mean, there's not unlike maybe Jake Lloyd. There's a lot of animus toward she who played Chloe Webber.
Chloe Webber.
I could have done without the dude from the council. Like, he was a rather annoying character.
That was a weird one. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but conceptually, yeah, it's fine.
Well, I don't think so. I think it's kind of bad, but who am I to judge Doctor Who, right? It's an episode that's filled time before the end. It was very doom. Remember at the very end, nothing's ever going to split us up, right, Doctor?
Yeah.
Cue titles. Because the week after is when it did. Fear Her is not good. Warren, do you have any Fear Her thoughts?
No, I've crapped on it enough over the years.
Okay.
Like, I didn't like it at the end.
Well, we'll move on to World Enough in Time then. World Enough in Time, the penultimate story of Series 10, with Doctor Who on a big ship with Missy sort of cosplaying as Doctor Who at the beginning. I'm
Which
Doctor
is
Who.
great. Yeah.
What a great scene. What a great scene.
The thing about this is that they there are problems with the fact that Bill gets turned into Cyberman, which is she got done dirty in this. But there are great scenes within this and the next one, just phenomenal scenes.
Yeah, it is unfortunate they shot a black woman in the chest and had her stay dead because there is some connotations to that in actual society that I think were probably overlooked when they made this show, which is unfortunate. I do remember that Rachel Talalay was saying that they were literally working on some of the opening effect shots 2 days before this aired, which is amazing.
Was this the one where in a flashback they're sitting on that bench eating chips?
Yeah.
And the Doctor talks about
yeah.
female time, gender swapping time regenerations.
That's right, yeah. Oh man, Moffat was just laying the seeds. Like I wonder how soon he knew that Chibnall was going to be the showrunner, and that Chibnall was going to cast a woman as the Doctor. And basically, he says, "Well, I better sow the seeds now before the internet nerd boys get all up in a huff about this."
I think he was just doing it on his own, just to do it.
That too, yeah.
Well, I mean,
he had to set it up in the regeneration thing with
Doctor's
Heaven
wife.
Sent, right, or Hellbent.
Yeah, and Missy was Missy,
And Missy,
well,
of course,
was
yeah.
well before Chris Chibnall came along. So
Yep, and Doctor's wife as well. Don't forget with the Corsair.
yeah.
Yeah. So he just had to do it, basically, for his own stuff to make sense.
I was in the UK when that aired at Paul Cornell's 50th birthday party. Yep, Eric and I snuck away to watch the episode.
Were you the
And
only
then-
ones to watch the episode? Come on.
I know. While everyone is at the party still, we stuck away because we gotta watch the episode. So we watched the episode, and then we went back to the party, and then after the party, went back to Paul's with Liz. Miles was there as well, and we watched it as if we hadn't seen
I
it
see.
yet before,
Gotcha.
because we especially wanted to see what Liz was thinking because of the John Sim reveal halfway through or towards the end of it. Because I don't think she knew that was a thing. I think she had not been spoiled by it. So my favorite part of that was turning to sort of very subtly watch what Liz was going to do when John Sim revealed himself as the master, and she was like over the moon. It was great. Great time. What a great weekend that was back in 2017.
If only that hadn't been spoiled by the stupid trailer in the pilot.
I know the
BBC
trailer
itself.
Yeah, I know, but it goes to show you that sometimes people just don't watch the trailers. If they didn't, sometimes you don't see things. You know, sometimes
And-
you just don't miss it.
Normally, I'm against people going, well, I'm not going to watch a trailer because that's spoilers. Like, 'cause people have got either insanely spoilerific or spoiler phobic. But when the BBC does it itself and screws up, then that's a point where you probably should criticize, frankly.
Yeah, I agree. Let's wrap up the time lapse with episode 1 of The War Machines, aired on June 25th, 1966. Let's face it, this is Doctor Who's first real, actual arrival in modern-day England. I mean, they're in there, obviously, in the very first episode, and Planet of the Giants too, sure, fine, and bits and bobs here and there, but
Chase.
first time properly in London, Doctor Who landing War Machines. No boxes yet. No boxes are kicked over and stuff like that. But
That's the highlight of the whole thing, is the cardboard box has taken a lot of
it
crap.
really is.
It's also the first of 3 for July 20th, 1966.
Oh yeah, dramatically. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So there you go. Anyway, that's we've prattled on long enough, and goodness me, I don't know how you people being the listeners who have stuck with us over the last 15 and a half years, I don't know how you people put up with this. We've been talking for like 2 hours about Doctor Who nonsense, and it's and you're still here, so thank you for that. So in reward for your patience, we'll rip through the next few of these things. There's a whole bunch of Target novelizations coming out on July 14th and beyond. Stones of Blood, Androids of Tara, Eaters of Light, Fires of Pompeii, all coming out on July 14th, rather. Zygon Invasion was initially going to come out, but that has been pushed back. Peter Hardis is working on an Apple TV Plus show right now, by the way. That might have something to do with it. But there's those also audiobook versions coming out for at least 2 of them. Fires of Pompeii and Eaters of Light are coming out.
On the same day, the 14th of July, yeah.
On the same day.
I'll be in Britain then. I could buy those, but I won't.
You could... I could buy those, but I won't. The Chris Burgess story.
I mean, the books maybe, because Kat bought some of the, I think it was the first wave, so like Rose and whatever.
Yeah.
So
like the physical forms you're talking about?
I'm not going to buy the audio stuff, but
No.
the books.
I like
Yeah.
I like how the qualifier here is, well, I'd buy the books so I have the complete set looking at me, not to read them,
Yeah,
just to
no.
have the complete set, the set of completionism.
I did that for the New Adventures up to a point, and then I stopped.
It was tough. It's tough to keep up with. Well, yeah. Also coming audio on August 4th is Resurrection Plant and the Audio Invasion audio release. That's coming on August 4th. Android Invasion. What did I say? Audio Invasion?
The Audio Invasion.
What a weird thing to say. Keys of Marinus and the Second Earth Adventures collection comes on September 1st. All these are from Penguin Books, the audio versions. And I haven't read it yet. I bought it and I haven't downloaded it yet. But Doctor Who Chronicles, number 5, the 5th issue of this, where they look at one specific year in Doctor Who history. 1967 came out. Jonathan Helm, aka WhoFX, has some stuff in there about effects from 1967 in there, but I haven't. I've purchased it because it's outside of your standard Doctor Who magazine subscription, but I haven't downloaded it yet. That's how behind it I am. So there's a whole bunch of stuff coming out. The Doctor Who Annual, the official 60th anniversary Doctor Who Annual 2023 comes out in September of 2022. Because why wouldn't it? So basically everything. Oh, there's David Tennant in there, but he's already been the 10th Doctor. So, but there's no Ncuti Gatwa on the cover. There's a Joe Martin though. Joe Martin and John Hurt. So is that 15 Doctors? 7, 8, yeah, probably 15. I'm not gonna count them all. But you can pre-order that now from Places. September 1st, the Doctor Who Annual that comes out. A couple Cubicle 7 Doctor Who role-playing stuff is happening in the first quarter of 2023, that being Secrets of Skaro, and also the Game Masters Screen, 2nd edition as well. That's coming out. So for you role-playing folks out there, there you go. Get after it. Game of Rassilon. Get on that for your future episodes. Yep. And lastly, some big Finish stuff. The 6th Doctor Adventures, Purity Undreamed, featuring Shirley Houston, OBE, comes out August. MB, thank you. 2022, and the big Finish 8th Doctor Adventures, What Lies Inside and Connections is coming out in fall of 2022. You can pre-order both of those at the Big Finish website. And the War Master Self-Defense is now available. I assume that probably, Warren, you've probably added that to your
I haven't, not yet.
expanded Big Finish queue.
Way behind on the War Master stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. When I say adding it to the queue, I mean adding it to the queue that you have to listen to, and you're
I was saying off air before this that I have a lot of stuff in the cloud that I have yet to get to.
That's true. But don't we all, though? Everyone has that pile of books or audio or TV or stuff like that. Or if you just want to watch Monster Peloton for an 8th time, then and then congratulations, you're me. Lastly, last week in the Time Lash, we mentioned Midnight and about how if there was a Doctor Who episode, certainly if there's a Doctor Who story from the modern series that would make a good stage play, then that would be it, just a bunch of characters in one room, great stage play. Well, little did we know that it's been already done, and it was done like over 10 years ago. Listener Dan sent us the link to it. The University of Salford had put on a actual adaptation of Midnight in 2011 for the stage play, which is kind of cool. I haven't watched that yet either. But there it is. There's a full technical rehearsal of it on YouTube. Links in the show notes at radiofreescaro.com. It's been there since 2013. We didn't know about it. That is pretty cool, though. So well done, people making not only Doctor Who fan films, but Doctor Who stage plays, which is kind of cool. It feels almost more legit when you're doing it as a stage play, because you can't just sort of do a crash course in After Effects and do a Dalek ray gun or something. You actually have to.
That is a real cheapening of the hard work put into these fan films. Come on.
I know it is. I only do that, Warren, because I can't do them myself.
I see. So you're a bitter old man, is what you're saying. Unlike myself.
Very bitter indeed. All right, folks, we've been going on long enough, so that's it. That's all our words for this week. Next week, oh boy, stand by for action. We resume our Space Museum commentary with episode 3. Lots of action there. Revolution, everybody. That's when it starts happening. So join us for that and more Doctor Who nonsense on this here podcast, Radio Free Skaro. So until then, I am Stephen in Edmonton.
Warren in Vancouver.
And Chris in Edmonton.
So long for now.
You've been listening to Radio Free Skaro. Find us online at radiofreeskaro.com. Follow us on Twitter and Tumblr at Radio Free Skaro. Subscribe to us on iTunes and donate to the show at patreon.com/Radio Free Skaro. Thank you.